Hello everybody. I figure take some time to do a little deck tech for a couple of the videos I haven't done so far, right? I did one that ran through Atraxa when I put that tech together, but I never really talked, I don't think, in too much detail about what I got going on in Oloro, although I'm sure most of you guys have seen it by now. So I'm going to do a quick video for this deck, and I'll do another one after with the Riku deck. But yeah, so where to start? Mana base, I don't really know as far as what's optimal or not. It's just some amount of plains, islands, and swamps, and I guess I'll just go through the non-basics that I run. So you got Urborg, it's just mostly to fix for swamps, and Watery Grave as a shock land, along with Hallowed Found and Godless Shrine. And then these two lands are like the newer duels, Fairy Stream and Sunken Hollow. And they're mostly there because they're duels that are fetchable, because I have we got Polluted Delta and Marsh Flats. And I think that's it. So those lands, oh, Flooded Strand as well. So you got 3 fetch lands, and with those you could fetch out Godless Shrine, Hallowed Fountain, Prairie Stream, Sunken Hollow, and Watery Grave. So you get most of our mana. I'd like to have a breeding pool in here, but I guess I don't have one. So, not the end of the world. And then we got Command Tower, because it taps for every color, so obviously great to have. Bojuka Bog, just Graveyard Hate. Arcane Sanctum, it's just a 3-color land, tap land, it's whatever. Probably don't even need it, but if you don't have anything else to do on turn 1, it's kind of nice to get it out there. And then Ancient Tomb, just 2 mana land to accelerate you. Pretty good if you can afford to run it. Then 0 drop, I'll just include it here. It's just Mana Rock. So we got, free Mana Crypt, or free 2 mana rock. It's pretty good, if you get that in the start of the game, it could really accelerate you. You could play, a good chunk of 3 drops. I guess just these ones. So let's play these 3 drops on turn 1. 4 drops. Most of the 4 drops it'll let you play on turn 2, which is pretty good, depending on what colors we have with our land. It also just lets you get Cygnus out for free. Any of these artifacts. So we have a good amount it could accelerate us with. Plus, all of these spells obviously benefit off the colored mana. Alright, Soul Ring. Soul Ring is Soul Ring. Everybody knows why that's in here. Mana Vault, same thing. Mana Vault is kind of just like a one-time use, like, colorless dark ritual sort of effect. Like, it's pretty much there to just accelerate the early game. Like, I pretty much will never pay to untap it. Occasionally, I could use Teferi over here. You can stop and read this if you want to untap 4 permanents. I'll use that to untap it, but usually it just stays tapped. We got Nihil Spellbomb, which is pretty much just Graveyard Hate, right? Sacrifice Nihil Spellbomb, exile all cards in target player's graveyard. So it's instant speed. Answer to Graveyard Hate, and if you play it back, you can draw a card. So usually I just cantrip with it, but every now and then Graveyard Hate matters. So that's why I have, just that and Bojuka Bog. I think are the only Graveyard Hate in this deck, and it's, does its job. So then we got Vamp Tutor and Enlightened Tutor. Pretty much the 2 same cards, just one of them only gets enchantments and artifacts. The other gets whatever you want. The cost of 2 life. And obviously the colors are different. So Enlightened Tutor, lots of options to get in this deck. Most frequent we find are, let's see, Humility. All creatures lose all abilities and have base toughness and power of 1. Pretty much just shuts down creature decks, right? Or makes them just all dirtily 1/1s. Deals with a lot of really scary effects that different creatures could have on the board. And since we're not really a creature-based deck, we don't care too much. Every now and then, like, I'll cast Oloro, and then I'll cast this, and I'll be like, well, fuck, now I'm not getting 2 life because I'm an idiot. So don't do that if you choose to play this deck. And, keep in mind, it does fuck with some of your creatures, so we only run, like, 1 to 2 creatures, maybe 3, yeah, Consecrated Sinks. So you run, like, 3 creatures plus, 4, because Sarah Ascendant. So we don't run, basically it won't hurt us unless we play stupidly, as I've been known to do. So, Vamp Tutor obviously gets whatever you need, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail on that one. Ponder, just good cantrip. It's really just in there to smooth out the early game. Swords to Plowshare and Path to Exile, just 2 really good spot removal spells that are really cost effective. Sarah Ascendant, pretty much the sole reason this card is in the deck is because if you could play it on turn 1, you just get in there for like a million damage because it's just a 6/6 lifelinking flyer for 1 mana in EDH. So if you get that on turn 1, you can just put down a ton of pressure really quickly. As well as like if you draw it late game, once you sort of have the board locked down, then you can play it and actually start winning. It's really all it's there for. It's not like super synergistic with anything in the deck. It's just, if you're playing white in EDH, it's a pretty good threat if you could fit it in. Alright, we got some signets here. Pretty much the 3 on colors, just a ramp. Play these on turn 1 with a Mana Crypt or Soul Ring or Ancient Tomb. Otherwise, get them out on turn 2 and accelerate into your 4 drops. So you get those out of there. Not really a ton to talk about. It's 2 drops. A little bit more interesting here. So Contagion Clasp. Enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Sometimes matters, maybe kill a Mana Dork or Birds of Paradise. But then the more interesting part is pay 4, tap it to proliferate. That's the main reason it's in here. I find that I don't really get to use it a lot because, it doesn't generally affect the board. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes you kill some random 1 toughness creature. But really it's like, if the Atraxa game plan is not working later, then there's an alternative way to proliferate the last few poison counters on the opponent. It's probably a cuttable card. If you were looking for things to cut, I would consider this relatively highly. I'll throw that over here. Speaking of things that are relatively high on the cut list, this is just another 2 mana creature to put a little bit of pressure on if you happen to have it in your opening hand. A little bit harder to cast because it is a black and a white mana. Whenever you gain life, you get 2 +1/+1 counters on it, so it'll grow really quick. And remove 6 counters, and you can exile target creature. I don't know if I've ever gotten to the point where I can do that. Usually they find an answer by then. But it's really just a creature that demands removal in this deck, which is, it's okay. It's not great. You can cut it if you'd rather not run it. But it does its job putting on pressure usually, if you could play it early. Demonic Tutor. It's a tutor. Gets anything you want. I'm really not going to talk about that. We all know what tutors are there for. Counterspell is just a counterspell. I think it's the only... looks like I run a couple in this deck. Yep. Those 3 are counterspells as well. So yeah, that's pretty much, this is a control deck. Our goal is to basically keep our opponent's board free of threats until we're able to get planeswalkers in and get planeswalkers into play and run away with the game. Long games will favor us usually, so this is just a way to deal with threats before they hit the board. It's Cyclonic Rift. Playing a blue deck in EDH, you place the Cyclonic Rift pretty much at all times. At worst, it's a 2 mana, just bounce target permanent, delay your opponent by 1 turn for whatever they're trying to do. At best, at the end of their turn, you bounce all their crap, then they have to discard a bunch of crap because they have too much stuff in their hand. And then the next couple turns they have to spend rebuilding. Meanwhile, you have your whole board full of planeswalkers that you're ticking up in the meantime. And it puts you way ahead if you're able to cast this card at the right time. Luminarch Ascension, another cuttable card. It's pretty much if you can play this on turn 2 and start getting some counters on it. If you can get this up to how many counters does it require? 4. If you get this up to 4 counters, which means you have to go 4 turns with this in play, 4 of your opponent's turns with this in play without losing life, then you could just start making 4/4 angels, which is pretty good. I think I've only gotten to that once, so it's very cuttable. I mean, it's a sort of cute win more card, but it's a sort of way to force your opponent to be proactive early on and, not just sit on their ass, sort of keeping up with you for the late game. I don't know, very cuttable. Johnny's Pridemate, same kind of thing. Whenever you gain life, put a counter on it. If you could play that on turn 1 or turn 2, start beating down until they find an answer to it. Get them low. Force them to maybe spend early turns dealing with it when they can't set up their board. Alright, now we're on to 3 drops. Chalice of Life. This card's okay. We get a decent amount of value out of it, actually. If your life is 10 higher than your starting life, then when you tap it, it flips, and the backside just says tap it to make target opponent lose 5 life. So it's basically just a win condition in the late game. Start doing damage to your opponent. We don't have a ton of them. You almost think of it as another just planeswalker in the deck. It usually is just a removal magnet, which is fine. Um, Generally, you can get good enough value out of it because your opponents aren't going to blow it up until it flips, so you can gain a bunch of life with it. Yeah, that's all that does. So just start a new column over here. Chromatic Lantern, just mana ramp that fixes, really self-explanatory. Commander Sphere, also just a 3-mana mana rock. Taps for any of your commander's colors, so good ramp. You could sack it to draw a card too, which sometimes is nice. Darksteel Ingot, same sort of thing, just indestructible. Taps for any color. And then back to the more interesting spells, you got Rings of Bright Earth. So whenever you activate an ability, if it's not a mana ability, you can pay 2 and copy that. So this is mostly in here to copy Planeswalker abilities. I think it could sort of get combo-y with Teferi and Mana Vault. But, I mean, this is like 100% like a win more card, I think. I don't know if I've ever really... I mean, you guys would know if you watch these videos. I don't know if you've ever seen me play this and use it to copy a Planeswalker ability, but, you know, could happen. You could dream, right? Ashiok, one of the cheaper Planeswalkers we can get out there early. You tick it up and exile some cards off the top of your opponent's deck, which is, pretty good. You can almost think of it as, you're just removing 3 possible threats every turn. Sometimes you can minus it to put a big creature in play. Usually Ashiok's dead by then, so it's not really a big deal. But you get value. Just exile some cards from your opponent's deck. You might hit some really good stuff and be glad they're not casting them, If you were looking for Planeswalkers to remove, I could see this being one of them. Alright, so then we got Vindicate, Mortify, and Anguished Unmaking. These all pretty much, you could probably just throw Hero's Downfall in here too, right? They're all just spot removal spells. So this one, creature or Planeswalker at instant speed, any permanent, and it exiles it. Costs a 3 life as well, instant speed. Target creature enchantment, and target permanent. So, just 4 ways to deal with your opponent's early threats so that you can move into the late game safely. Similarly, Toxic Deluge, just a board wipe. Pay X life, all creatures get -X/-X. So it's nice because it's a 3-mana board wipe when most of them come in at the 4+ mana slot. You have to pay life, not a huge deal. We're playing Oloro. We gain life every turn, so it's pretty much free. Then we could go here to these. So we got Hinder, counter target spell, and put down on the top or bottom of your opponent's library. Dissolve, counter target spell, scry 1. Dissipate, counter target spell, and exile it. And render silent, counter target spell, your opponent can't cast spells this turn. So pretty much, just this is the counter magic suite I decided to go with. You can make your own decisions on whether or not they're the right ones or the wrong ones or what you would run instead. Plenty of debate to be had there. These are sort of just cheap ones that are easy to get my hands on. Alright, then we got both of these cards, I guess, fill a similar role as well, right? Beginning of your upkeep, draw 1 card and lose 1 life, and then a Planeswalker that basically lets you draw cards. And this really all this does. Right, each player draws a card, or a target player draws a card, so you tick it down until you have to tick it up, and then tick it down again, and draw a bunch of cards. Right, Planeswalkers do their thing. Humility we already talked about, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on there. It's just great. We're not a creature deck, and this hoses creature decks. Good for us. Well of Lost Dreams has sort of become the MVP of this deck. Much to my surprise, actually. I was not really expecting to get as much value out of this when I built this deck, but it's really good. You get this out there for 4 mana. Every turn we gain 2 life, and if we just tap 2 mana, so say Soul Ring, Mana Rock, anything we want, for each life we gain, which is 2 every turn, we draw that many cards. So basically every turn, pay 2 mana, gain 2 life, draw 3 cards, including our upkeep. So pretty good. Just really good card draw. Vidakan Ore lets us play all of our shit like it has flash. Leyline does the same thing. That's pretty good, being able to keep our mana up, right? We're a control deck. This lets us play even our sorcery speed removal, such as board wipes, at instant speed, which is really good. As well as Planeswalkers, if we're, I don't know, Planeswalkers you don't really want to play at sorcery speed because you sort of miss a turn of activating them. But sometimes it comes up, basically. Being able to play things at instant speed, pretty good. Not really much to say there. Utter End sort of falls in that spot removal category. Nothing fancy. Exile target permanent. Then we can go look at here. Supreme Verdict is an uncounterable Wrath. Wrath of God is just a Wrath. Pretty much standard board wipes. Another way, again, to reset our opponent's board so we can get ahead in the late game. Control Magic, if our opponent has a really big threat, this is just, hey, we'll take it. and we'll start putting on some pressure, sort of stabilize the board to go in the late game, as well as if they have, say, a Maelstrom Wanderer, a really troublesome commander that we don't want to kill because they recast it and get a bunch of value, then we can just take it. Solve that problem, right? Steal their commander, makes other decks have trouble functioning. Fact or Fiction, really just card draw. You could read that if you don't know what Fact or Fiction does, but it's basically draw a bunch of cards. Your opponent gets a little bit of say in what they are, but in general, pretty good. Alright, we got Elspeth. Our last 4-drop. It's pretty much Planeswalker here. Make a 1/1 soldier. Not usually super relevant. Kind of protects the Planeswalkers though by putting a blocker in play, which is pretty good. And then target a creature gets +3/+3 in flying. And that's the big one, right? If we have any like dirty creature out, mostly from this card itself, occasionally one of the 1 or 2 drops I showed you, just make it big and start putting on pressure. This is a Planeswalker that could probably come out of this deck, right? Because we're not a creature deck, so creating these 1/1s just feels a little bit silly. And, you know, pumping something with flying and swinging with it, I mean, it requires us to get value off this, right? So this is pretty much a self-contained card. It doesn't really interact with anything else in our deck. It's just, you know, we're playing Planeswalkers and trying to win with them. This Planeswalker tries to win sort of on its own, which is good. I mean, we do need a way to win. I would not rank it as a super strong Planeswalker in this deck, but it is a slow win condition, but a win condition nonetheless. Alright, 5 drops. Alhamra's Archive. This will get blown up every time you play it, so don't go too hard at it. But if you gain life, you gain twice the life. If you draw cards, you draw twice the cards, not counting your first draw step. You just grind out a bunch of value out of it in the late game, pull farther ahead. Nyxlis. So here we're at one of the better Planeswalkers in this deck. Basically, you can tick it up and draw an extra card every turn, and at any point, tick it down to destroy a creature. Really good. I don't even know what its ultimate does. Whenever a player draws a card, you lose 2 life. Oh, your opponent gets this. Whenever anyone draws a card, your opponent loses 2 life. Yeah, pretty good. I never really get there, but it's mostly just a really good Planeswalker who both kills creatures and gives you card advantage, and you could usually get a lot of value out of it. Liliana, same thing. She comes into play with 5 loyalty counters, and her -2 is a tutor. So you basically play her in tutor twice if you wanted to. Puts a card on top of your deck. And or you can just tick it up and make your opponent discard cards. It's a really, really strong Planeswalker in this deck, I feel. Exorbital Tide. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. So basically just pump up the counters on these Planeswalkers. It's hard. It's 5 mana for an effect for a card that doesn't affect the board when you play it. You know, you have to wait a whole turn to get value out of it. And in general, I really hate cards like that. So I don't rank. I mean, it's the same vein as Archive, right? I don't rank those as very strong cards. They're not cards I would probably keep in the deck if I was trying to make it more competitive. But they're good cards in a sort of average, semi-competitive, casual EDH format. You know, if you're with friends, you just play a lot of fun big cards. These ones are pretty good. But you know, if you're playing against decks with Wasteland, Strip Mine, Crucible of Worlds, Mana Vault, Mana Crypts, all the crazy, really competitive decks, these aren't really going to do much for you. So going to 6 drops, we'll just grab a couple because this video is actually taking forever. So we got these 3 6 drops here, basically board wipes, right? Austere Command. You could destroy all artifacts, destroy all shamans, destroy all creatures that cost 3 or less, or 4 or more. You have to pick 2 of those options. So it's pretty flexible board wipe. You basically just choose the option that screws with your opponent the most while not screwing with you, because it does affect your stuff as well. Merciless Eviction, same kind of thing. You just choose one effect, choose whatever screws with your opponent or, you know, keeps you alive, and doesn't affect you. Really, really good card, especially this one, Exiles, which is really nice sometimes. Terminus, all creatures at the bottom of their owner's deck. Good board wipe. Costs 1 mana if you're able to miracle it. You know, probably some amount of these Wraths and spot removal could be removed if you wanted to, but I like playing them in a 1v1 setting. It's fun. So 6 drop Planeswalkers. Teferi, some card advantage taking her up. Some nice mana advantages taking her down. And some combo shenanigans if you get the right bunch of cards into play. Proliferate effect like Contagion Clasp, right? You've got that combined with a Mana Crypt, combined with her minus. You can do things. There's a 4-mana artifact I guess I cut from this deck that lets you activate Planeswalker abilities more than once when you tap it, and that sort of helps you combo with her, so she can do weird things. In my deck, not perfect, so could probably cut her if I really wanted to, but if you build your deck, it's possible to build your deck in a way where she's very, very good in it. I haven't done that, so really she's kind of just a 6-mana card advantage engine. So not perfect for me, but pretty good. Sorin just makes everybody hate you. You put it into play for 6 mana, -3, target opponent's life becomes 10. And, you know, fuck you, right? You're an asshole. Everybody hates you. Don't really care. Trying to win. This card is very good at getting your opponent really low, right? We don't have a lot of cards in here that can just do damage to our opponent to actually kill them, right? We got some dirty creatures, don't really do much later. This gets your opponent really low in that late game and puts them in range of being killed with each other's stuff. Really good card. Consecrated Sphinx, play it, draw 2 cards at your opponent's upkeep, and then they kill it. But hey, you just draw 2 cards for 6 mana and eat a removal spell from your opponent. Pretty good. You know, I'm half joking. Obviously, if they don't kill it, you're just going to get a ton of value out of this card. It's really, really good. But this card will always get killed if your opponent has an answer to it. If your opponent doesn't have an answer to it, then you probably win the game on the spot with this card. Elspeth, Sun's Champion. So another board wipe for all creatures of power 4 or greater, and it creates dirtily creatures. So it'll clog up the board defensively for you. It'll kill your opponent's creatures and bring you to winning. I mean, this is another one of those cards that just is an engine towards victory in its own right, even though it doesn't necessarily synergize with everything in this deck. And sort of that's what we're looking for, right? A bunch of Planeswalkers that will help you just win the game when we get to late game after controlling and stabilizing and whatnot. Along that note, Ugin, probably the strongest Planeswalker in this deck by far. Put into play, minus it, blow up all colored permanents that are X or less. And, you know, you could choose to blow up, basically you can set it up to blow up all your opponent's stuff and not really affect you too much if possible. A lot of flexibility with that minus, and the plus is just Lightning Bolt, which is pretty good. It starts with really high loyalty, ticks up by 2. It's minus, really good too, obviously. This is one of those Planeswalkers where if you get into play and they can't immediately deal with it, it will win you the game. Decree of Pain, 5 mana, give all creatures -2/-2, or 8 mana, wipe the board, draw a bunch of cards. Just a really good, really good stabilizing card. If your opponent is beating you down, you play this, all their creatures get killed, and you draw a bunch of cards. And, you know, worst case, you do this for 5 mana and just board wipe. Really good. I like the card a lot. Dig Through Time. Really good draw spell. Really all there is to it. Look at your top 7 cards, put 2 of them into your hand. Solid. And, you know, one of my favorite new additions, Mind Twist. Basically, the goal with this card is to empty your opponent's hand and make them sad. If you resolve this, your opponent discards all their cards, you will probably win the game. And, I mean, that's about it. So, you know, obviously you got Oloro in the command zone. You know, feel free to let me know what you think. Use the ideas yourself if you like them, if you don't like them. That wraps up this deck. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.